Hey retro gamers. Today on Smashing Bricks, we go back to 2002 and explore a wide open world with little guidance and zero guardrails in The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind for PC. Hey, welcome back to Smashing Bricks, a retro gaming podcast. This is episode 43. My name is Eddie Inzauto, and today I'm joined once again by the erudite and eloquent communications manager of indie game publisher Digital Banditos, former GamesIndustry.biz editor-in-chief, Mr. James Batchelor. Hey James, how's it going?
Hey Eddie, how you doing?
Really good, really good.
Thank you so much for having me back, man.
Yes, thank you for coming. I love having you here, and I feel like you've revealed slightly that you've had a great time with this episode. Spoiler alert. What are we talking about, James?
We are talking about The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind.
And actually, before we get into it, do you want to say something about your new endeavor with Digital Banditos?
Yeah, sure. So, for those who don't know me, I used to be a journalist in the games industry, the B2B side of things. I spent about 18 years in it and then, worked my way up to editor-in-chief of GamesIndustry.biz. End of last year, I left that and I've joined Digital Banditos, which is an indie publisher. It's a new publisher from most of the team behind Versus Evil, which is the publisher that brought us the Banner Saga, Pillars of Eternity, loads of great games like that. We're just over a year old. We're still ramping up, as it were. We've just launched our first game, Soulstone Survivors. If I may have a little plug, honestly, I am not saying this because I'm paid to do so. I'm saying this because I genuinely really love this game. It's basically Vampire Survivors, but you're a badass all the way through. It leans very heavily into the kind of the power fantasy side of the Survivors-like genre.
Yes.
So, that bit at the end of the match where you're unstoppable and you're wiping out the entire screen, you get there within about 10 minutes of each run in this, but there's still loads of challenge. There's like 22 different characters. There's loads of different ways to do the builds. You can stack buffs and debuffs infinitely. It's far too complex for me. I just like wiping out enemies, but yeah, so we've launched our first game. So we're off to a good start. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. That sounds great. Sounds just like The Elder Scrolls III: Morrowind, where you get overpowered in the first 10 minutes. Or not.
Or not. Very much not.
So what is The Elder Scrolls? We know it was released in 2002, May 2nd, in North America and the EU on PC. Then it came to the Xbox, the original Xbox, on June 7th and November 22nd in North America and the EU. This was Bethesda Game Studios' first game with that name after they split off from publisher Bethesda Softworks as part of ZeniMax, the parent corporation, and it's a Western RPG. It is wide open. It's an open world. It's like to scale. You feel like you're in a world. It's first person or third person, and what stands out to me is it's really free-form adventuring. I think that's like a good basic way to talk about this game, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's really freeform. It's there's little to no guidance here, apart from the opening 10 minutes where you essentially, it's almost like not a tutorial, it's like a fancy character selection process. Mm-hmm. As soon as you've stepped out of the character selection process, you can go anywhere. And to my memory, I don't think it's not even like that heavily level gated. A lot of open worlds nowadays, you get complete freedom, but if you go that way, you're going to have a harder time than if you go the other way. This, not so much. You can just literally go anywhere.
Yeah, it's oh my God. We'll talk about more about our feelings about it, but this is definitely an open freeform game for sure. But what we're doing most of the time in the game is not even so much action as you would find in other Western RPGs. They're essentially action RPGs. There's exploration, there's combat, but there's a lot of conversations and a ton of reading. I wrote in my notes, this is almost a text adventure put into a user interface with, three-dimensional character models and environments. There's so much text, so much reading. And when I realized that, it started to click for me. It's 3D graphics, and it's mostly from this first-person perspective, unless you pull the camera out, which I don't normally do or recommend because it looks weird. And what would you say about the art style? It's like dark, but like fantastical. Like we have these big mushroom trees growing everywhere in different environments, in different areas.
I mean, we'll get into this later, but like, I honestly, if I were to describe it in a word, imaginative.
Yes, very.
It's not your typical high fantasy setting.
Right. Yeah, because I want to say like it's a fantasy story, but when you get there, you're like, this is like a little weird. It's like it's dark. It's got a dark feeling about it. It's like foreboding just to be there. And it's a slow burn, like the narrative style. I would say it's a slow burn, and you learn about the story, the game, the world, and yourself through the process of immersion in the world, I would say.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
This is just as an overview so people know what we're talking about. But I've never played this game before. This was the first time. I was introduced to Elder Scrolls in 2006 with Oblivion, which actually was my favorite game at the time. It had a huge impact on me. I played hundreds of hours, loved it so much, and it impressed me to an incredible degree. I thought it was this groundbreaking style of game. Little did I know, Morrowind did it 4 years earlier. So what about you? Did you play it back in the day?
I did. I'll get to me in a second. To your point, I do think this is one of those series where the first one you play is the one that has the biggest impact, and this is the one that leaves the biggest impression because, like a lot of people were introduced with Elder Scrolls, but we smug Morrowind players were like, well, this is just Morrowind, but better. And then the same for Skyrim. Like most people who played Skyrim, a lot of people probably played Skyrim first, given how much that sold compared to Oblivion and Morrowind. And so that to them is this incredible revelation. And I'm sitting there playing it as like, this is literally like the third time I've done this. We're fine. My background with this is quite fun. It was a recommendation from a friend at school. I was obsessed with a game called Thief 2, The Metal Age, which has come out a couple of years earlier. It's such an amazing game. Still to this day, my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
For those who don't know what Thief is, first person immersive sim. You are a thief in a kind of a medieval, but also a bit steampunk kind of world. And you're sneaking into mansions and stealing as much loot as you can. And there's usually a story like linking the heist and stuff, but it's all about the stealth. And it is by one of the best stealth systems, even now, one of the best stealth systems in gaming generally. Like you have to really be careful about the sound you're making and whether or not you're appearing in the light, and it's absolutely superb. I was banging on about this to my friends as usual, and a friend of mine said you should try Morrowind because it's like Thief but bigger. And that's not an entirely accurate description, but it's also quite accurate. Like if you play this as a thief, which I do. I always do.
I figured.
Actually, yeah. Like this. Thieves' levels were quite open, but they were. It was a set level. It was. It was a mansion or a bank, and this is go around the world and steal everything you can. And so I bought this for my. I think I borrowed it from a friend. We had a cultural exchange with a friend. He borrowed my GameCube for a few months. I borrowed his Xbox, and I think he had. Might have even been him who recommended it. I think he had Morrowind on Xbox. And I played it and I enjoyed it, but I didn't get very far in it because I was playing other Xbox games and stuff. And then it was one of those games where, I don't know if you had this over there, but we had in our game shops, the PC section would always have like really cheap games in like a DVD. This is back when like most new PC games still came in a massive cardboard box, but the cheap ones were in like a little DVD style case,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be like 2 games for £10 and that sort of thing. And I picked this up, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I adored it. I do not know how many hours I played. I got a fair chunk of the way through the main quest. I got I think about halfway through the Thieves Guild quests, and then it's just a game I just drifted away from and never got back to it because it was so big. I was like, oh, actually, I should play something else, and I just never went back to it. I have been itching to come back to this for years, like pretty much ever since Skyrim came out. And by that point, I'd given away my copy of Morrowind, so I didn't have it on PC anymore. I just never got around to like buying it. It was on Game Pass, so I installed it on my Xbox, but I never got around to opening it. And then when you were messaging me like, "Hey, would I like to come on Smashing Bricks again? And what game would I like to do?" I think I was quite vocal in how much I wanted to suggest Morrowind because it's timely because we've just had the Oblivion remaster, and it was so good going back to this.
Yeah, that's quite a history. Did you play Daggerfall also?
No, I didn't. I want to try Daggerfall because I think that's the only one I haven't played. There was a period where, I don't know if you can still do it, but Bethesda used to offer Arena, which is the first ever Elder Scrolls. They offered that as a free download on their website because no one's going to pay for a 1994 game. But if you're curious to see how the series started. So I downloaded that and I don't think I had a clue what I was doing with it. So I gave up. But this got me hooked, and like this got me into Bethesda games. So I then was really excited about Oblivion. So I got Oblivion. I then saw Fallout 3 shown off at the last Leipzig. So Leipzig is a town in Germany where what's Gamescom now used to be held in Leipzig by a slightly different company. And I went to the final Leipzig and I saw Fallout 3 in, a preview of it. So I got that and I loved that. And then Skyrim came out and that was amazing. And then Fallout 4 came out and that wasn't as good. And then Skyrim came out again on Switch and I poured God knows how many hours into that. And so, but this was the start. This was the start of my love affair with Bethesda games.
Yeah, I actually, after I played Oblivion, I also said, oh, I need more of this. Oh, Oblivion with guns. Let me play that. Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. And then by the time Skyrim came around, I started it and I said, oh man, I got to come back to this and put hundreds of hours into it. And I never did. I played like 2 hours of it. But I will one day. Maybe once Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, I'll be playing Skyrim, something like that. Anyway, so this game had a little bit of a history. It came kind of in the middle of this series. It was the 6th generation of home consoles. The Xbox and GameCube had just come out the year before this game came out. PS2 was in its 3rd year of an epic life cycle. There were lots of great games, which we will be covering on the bonus round for this month. We're doing the best games of 2002, and I saw tons of games on there. Sort of a contemporary game to this at this time would have been Neverwinter Nights, which is the same style of game, but in that traditional isometric perspective. And this predated another game that was huge for 3-dimensional Western RPGs, predated KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, by a little more than a year. So that's what was going on. It was directed by Todd Howard, the Elder Scrolls guy, as he's been the director of basically every Elder Scrolls game forever, and at least one Fallout. And lead designer was Ken Rolston, who was the lead on Morrowind and Oblivion, and later Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, among others, and he did some tabletop RPG stuff before that. Had a 40-person team. More than a 40-person team, 40 developers, and composer Jeremy Soule, who has become pretty famous, right?
Yeah, he's one of the big video game composers.
Yeah, and he always stands out as being another The Elder Scrolls guy when it comes to music, and you hear it immediately when you get in the game. This was actually released 6 years after its predecessor, Daggerfall, but it kind of started right after. It was conceived while they were still making Daggerfall, really. And It was originally planned to be set in the Somerset Isles, which is a different part of this world that Bethesda has created for the Elder Scrolls. And it was going to be built in the X engine, which is what Daggerfall was built in. Eventually, they moved to Gamebryo, which was called, what was it called then? Netimmerse was the engine, but that became Gamebryo, and they announced that right alongside the big NVIDIA GeForce 4 announcement. So they were really showing off these new big 3D worlds with lighting and stuff like that. But they moved it to Morrowind instead of where they had originally planned it, and they were going to cover a scope of geography that was maybe like 20 times the size of where it ended up. But that's only a small part of Morrowind when you look at the Elder Scrolls Tamriel map. And they were going to use the entire region, and they decided to scale it back so that they wouldn't do too much and screw it up, which is basically what they said afterward.
Fun fact, there's actually a fan mod community. I believe it's called Tamriel Rebuilt. And they have pretty much since this game came out in 2002, because I think it's one of those games that came out with modding tools, or at least modding tools were released. It was the TES construction set. And they've been using those tools and better tools that have come out over the years, but pretty much since 2002 to build the rest of Morrowind around Vvardenfell.
Oh man, that's incredible. That is something I may have to try to dip into. Is it available now? Are they still working on it? What is that?
I think it's one of those mods that's like it's constantly in work. They might occasionally have beta tests and stuff, but I think it's not like fully available. I don't think.
But it sounds like a great, ambitious project. I love it when people decide that they love a game so much that they put all this extra effort into it and make it like that much more inviting to fans. That's really cool. This game was put on hold in 1997, almost immediately after starting. And then they went and they made Redguard and Battlespire. And then they came back to this, years later. They decided to design every little tiny detail, every little item, every little cup and spoon and fork and everything in this world. I'm pretty sure this is the first time they did this rather than using a more like procedurally generated type approach to the environment. By 2000, they decided, okay, this is going to be 100% single player. We cannot make multiplayer elements for this. And later they said that it took close to 100 man years to make this game. They tripled their staff in the first year of development, and that's when they made the Elder Scrolls construction set, which helped them to produce everything following, obviously. It was set to release in late 2001. It was shown at E3 2001 to good reception. Delayed to spring 2002 later in the year for testing, and finally came out, as we said, in May of 2002. And it was localized to the EU in a weird way. Did you know about this? There were two releases.
I did not know.
It was published by Ubisoft, and first they released a version of the game where the manual, I guess you wouldn't know because you speak English, but they released it where the manual was translated, but the game text was all in English, no matter whether it was released in Spain, France, German, whatever. So the manual was translated, but then the game was in English. Okay. And that was in May. But then in August, the EU got a real release where the game was actually translated to all the other languages. I don't know why they would do that.
And it wouldn't have been like a patch back in the day, would it? Like, that's really weird.
No. Full, like, boxed release, not an update. That's incredible. I mean, I guess they really wanted to cater to the English-speaking fans. They figured, well, we have an English game. It's ready. Let's give it to them now. Everyone in the British Isles can play it. Sales sold 95,000 units by the end of June, 200,000 copies by the end of September, and by August 2005, it had surpassed 4 million copies sold. It was the best-selling RPG for the Xbox in 2002 and remained one of the top 10 best-selling games all the way through October 2003. The only other game that was able to do that, to remain that popular for that long on the Xbox, was Halo. So Morrowind and Halo, they're on equal ground there on the Xbox, which is saying something. They also decided to make a strategy guide for this game in-house because they didn't feel like anyone could know the game as well as they did to make an acceptable strategy guide. So they sold this Morrowind Prophecy strategy guide, and they sold 200,000 copies of it as of September 2003. And in doing that, they doubled the profit margin by making their own book, because normally they'd have like Brady Games or Prima or whoever doing it. So that was like a big, interesting, unusual success for the way that they did that. And it's probably better because just like they thought that they could know their game better than anyone else, I kind of feel like they probably did too, especially after playing the game a little bit. It's deep and there's a lot of hidden stuff going on in there. What else? So we had some reviews. It got an average Metacritic score of 89 out of 100, with 4 out of 5 from All Games, 6 out of 10 from Edge. I guess they didn't like it so much. Game Informer, 9 out of 10. GamePro, 5 out of 5. GameSpot, 8.7 out of 10. GameSpy, 89 out of 100. IGN, 9.4 out of 10. PC Gamer, 90 out of 100. Wow, pretty good. I don't know what happened with Edge. They were not in line with everybody else. But it did win.
Unusual.
Yeah, interesting, huh? It didn't win PC RPG of the Year from GameSpy. It lost Best RPG of the Year to Neverwinter Nights at PC Gamer and somewhere else at GameSpot also. But it won Xbox Game of the Year there. It won PC RPG of the Year at IGN. It won Game of the Year at IGN's RPG Vault. It won IGN's Reader's Choice Best Story, and it was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Original Music Composition and Computer Role-Playing Game of the Year at the 6th Annual AIAS Awards. But it ultimately lost to Neverwinter Nights again for RPG of the Year. So Neverwinter Nights was the thorn in this game's side.
Yeah, I've played both, like Neverwinter Nights and Morrowind, and this is the one I remember the most fondly. So that's funny. Maybe my tastes are wrong.
Maybe you didn't hate the journal as much as pretty much all of the journalists at the time did. It was the most criticized thing upon release was the way the journal is.
So the journal, interestingly, like I can see why it was criticized at launch because there were two expansions for Morrowind. There was Tribunal, which added the capital city of Morrowind, Mournhold. You could only go to the city; you couldn't step out of it. And if I remember rightly, that expansion updated the journal. So the journal it's a diary of your adventures and stuff. So it keeps a record of who you've spoken to, what your missions are, and it's all very kind of done like, I spoke to Cassius Cosaid, and he sent me to the Dwemer ruins of blah, blah, blah.
Looks just like a journal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's to kind of track your objectives, track your quests. If I remember rightly, Tribunal improved the journal to the point where you didn't flick through all the pages. You could flick through all the pages, but it added an index, so you could search by alphabetically the topic you're looking for. Like, right, who was the last person who said something about the Ashlanders? You click on Ashlanders, etc.
Cool.
And then Blood Moon added and expanded the journal again to list your quests, so you could see all the entries that were related to specific quests. But in the vanilla release, there was no way of just checking. You think about how accustomed we are now to checking your quest lists, and it's all split into like main quests, side quests, all that. This wasn't a thing, and particularly because like you could stumble upon a side quest or a faction quest or something like midway through doing a normal quest. So you just had pages and pages and pages of a journal to flick through and trying to work out which bit was relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, and yeah, obviously this primitive stuff, but like, if you stumbled on a character that you're not meant to meet until midway through a quest, so say your quest is to rescue someone, if you stumble upon the person you're rescuing before you meet the person that asks you to rescue them, the journal will just say, I've met such and such and I need to take them back to this person. It's like, what? And it's really confusing. So I fully understand why that was criticized.
Yeah, I encountered a little bit of that where I was talking, my character was writing in the journal, kind of talking about another character as if I had a full background on that character, but it was someone who I just ran into. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so let's move on and talk about our retro replay experience overall. And I don't even know where to start. Let me think. So, yeah, I think the world is the defining element of the game, and everything else about the game, from the story to the way you interface with things to the quests, the combat, all of that, it all is a result of the world that they wanted to build. It feels to me like they said, let's build this world and figure out how to put a game in it after.
And equally, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, like, every other element of this game has been improved upon by Oblivion or Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've already talked. Yeah, like the journal has definitely been improved upon. The combat, the quest systems, the mechanics, the skill systems, the leveling up, like everything, absolutely everything has been improved on by later games. But I'll be honest, I went into this worrying that nostalgia was going to take over, and I was going to be like, oh, this is definitely the best one, etc. And it's just like I remembered it, etc. You go back to it, and it's old. It's old and it's janky. And I recognise that Oblivion, Skyrim, and particularly Oblivion Remastered are a much smoother playing experience. But neither of those games has a world that stands out to me as much. You start on a wooden galleon. You go into this kind of medieval town. It's the strange mix of everything that I love. You start off in like a medieval town, but there are like the Imperial soldiers are dressed kind of like Roman soldiers. So you've got Roman soldiers in a medieval town in a fancy swamp, where just behind the town there's a silt strider, which is a gigantic insect. It's kind of like a woodlouse with a woodlouse on stilts. Like be huge, and that's your fast travel system. You talk to the person by the silt strider, and they take you to a city of your choice. And you go a little further out the town, and you're seeing giant mushrooms the size of oak trees. And you go further, you find when you get into like the wizards, the Telvanni territory, they've grown towers out of giant plants. So a wizard's tower is not a pile of bricks with a thatched roof. It is a gigantic plant with curving, twisting vines as the path up to the doors, and then inside is basically like a hollowed out plant. The enemies and the monsters and stuff you fight, there's like these the cliff racers, which are sort of like pterodactyls but not. There's the Nyx hounds, which are like these giant. They look and act like dogs, but they look like a giant insect. You've got the guars, which are almost like a two-legged dinosaur thing with a giant head. Everything looks unusual. You've got some standard stuff like rats and skeletons and ghosts, but the vast majority of this world is something you've never seen before. There's a town midway up the world called Old Rune, where all of the nobility live in. I think it's called Scar. It's this giant hollowed out crab shell, and they've built their homes they've built manors into this giant hollowed out crab shell. You've got some medieval towns, but then you've got some kind of weird sandstone sort of towns. The main city is this like weird collection of giant sandstone. They call them cantons. So they're basically like just 6 or 7 giant buildings built into the water. and then they've got different levels, and they've got canal works and so forth. And it's very, very unusual. And I found myself playing this and thinking, I remember thinking when Oblivion first came out, this looks like it's been modelled to resemble Lord of the Rings. Like Cyrodiil, the Imperial City, is clearly meant to be Gondor because the Lord of the Rings films were really popular at the time. Skyrim came out, and is it Whitefell, Winterrun, or Whiterun, sorry, the first town you go to is basically Edoras from Lord of the Rings, and there was also very kind of I may be wrong on the timing of this, but it had a very kind of Game of Thrones atmosphere to it in terms of the cold north and dragons and it was very mainstream, typical high fantasy. And that made sense commercially because that's how you attract a more a larger audience, and that's why those games were sold. Oblivion sold a lot more than Morrowind. Skyrim sold a lot more than Oblivion. Like, they probably sold more than Oblivion and Morrowind combined.
Yeah.
Because they're more familiar. They're more some of the elements of Skyrim is like it's basically Viking sort of stuff, and like it's familiar elements of a fantasy world. It's your typical high fantasy. But you go to this, and it's like I have not seen anything like this before or since, and it's incredible. It's imaginative, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I love this game.
Yeah, one thing that it does remind me of, coming back in time as I am with this game, is it reminds me a little bit of Elden Ring in terms of like going into Caelid, and you have this very alien landscape, that sort of thing, having these different places that are fantasy but weird, like warped, like the Ren and Stimpy view of fantasy. Did you play Elden Ring?
I tried. I was very, very bad at it. I just couldn't get on with it. But it sounds like a weird mix of style, medieval towns with Roman soldiers next to giant plant towers and stuff like. And it is weird. But it is also it's built with very kind of solid world building. The medieval towns are essentially settlements set up by the Empire,
yes,
who have invaded and kind of settled areas of Vvardenfell and Morrowind in general. The giant plant towers and stuff, those are of I think it's the Dunmer, the Dark Elves, this is their natural home. Like Skyrim is home to the Nords, Morrowind is home to the Dunmer, the Dark Elves. And so you can kind of tell from whatever town you're in, this is a Dunmer city, this is a Imperial city. And it all makes sense within the world's logic.
Yes. Yeah, and I think underlying this world is this sort of incredibly deep political history of this world. And that element, and I haven't even gotten incredibly far into the game, but that element, as it continues to reveal itself through the immense amount of dialogue and book reading you can do in this game, it becomes more and more impressive and eye-opening to me as a player that, oh my God, there's a lot going on here. There are the 5 or 6 houses that of essentially like worship. Then there are all these guilds, but then you have people coming from other parts of the world, and the interplay between peoples and the histories of things that have happened, like, they invaded here, these people were oppressed, now they did this. It is an extensive history, kind of rivaling world history as I was reading it. I've done a lot of reading about history lately, and as I was getting into this game, I was feeling like, wow, these writers wrote out the history of a whole world for this. You feel that way?
Yeah, no, I agree. And what I love is like there's so many grey elements as well. Like, so one of the things you encounter is there's slavery. Like the Dunmer believe that slavery is kind of a sacred sacred right. Like they have the right, the divine right to have slaves. But the Empire is anti-slavery. but they don't have enough power in Morrowind to prevent slavery from happening. I swear I spoke to a bunch of people who said there's a group of abolitionists who are trying to free all the slaves, like just even a simple topic like that of whether or not slaves are allowed or not.
Yeah.
It's just the detail. Like, so there's a town called Caldera, and near that is an ebony mine, and ebony is a crucial resource that can be mined from this area. It's part of the reason why the Empire took over, and one of the great houses kind of controls the ebony mines, and all the other the houses are scheming to get it. What again? Like the main story. Again, I love that it's not so mainstream. Like,
yeah, and it's brave to have
it's
written
really
this
brave.
way.
Like,
they would never do this now.
no, absolutely not. Because both Oblivion and Skyrim are the typical. They're essentially save the world stories.
Yeah,
Like, Oblivion, a dark, evil Daedric prince is trying to come from the Oblivion dimension to take over. We need to stop him. Skyrim, a giant dragon is going to try and destroy the world. We need to stop him. This, like, if I may not spoil, but like kind of summarize the main quest story, because I think it's interesting. And equally, you can pour so much time into this game, you might not even know what the main story is. You've been brought there. It starts as all Elder Scrolls games do. You've been released from prison. You've been brought there by the Emperor's orders because you meet some of the criteria of the prophesized Nerevar, who is a fabled hero who's going to come to Morrowind and rescue the Dunmer and force all the Outlanders, so the Empire and anyone else that doesn't belong in Morrowind, force them all out of Morrowind. And you kind of meet some of this prophecy, and there's a massive religious debate as to whether or not this prophecy is real or whether it's an invention, and you're sent to investigate this prophecy and learn more about it. As you're learning more about it, you learn that the Emperor and his blades, his secret agents, are putting you here because they believe you'll fulfill the prophecy, and that will give them power in the region, power and validity in the region if they have the Nerevar. So you're kind of there as an imposter Nerevar to pretend you are and to try and force yourself to meet the criteria. But all the way through, you're having strange dreams and messages from people every time you like rest in a bed or something, and it turns out you might actually be the prophesized hero, and you end up taking on a god. And it's like, but none of this is like, save the world. All of this is purely about who has control of Vvardenfell, who is the leading power in Vvardenfell. It's a religious political conflict, and that's so rare for any video game, let alone a fantasy video game, to focus on that sort of storyline rather than a good versus evil.
Yes, absolutely. And as I was realizing this was the story, all of a sudden I went from, man, this game is so opaque and hard to figure out what I have to do and where I'm going and what's going on, to, oh, wow, this is really interesting. I got to learn more about this. Oh, let me talk to this person about this, because this person said something and it didn't quite make sense, but maybe I can get more information. Oh, wow, I just learned something about this other faction. That is messed up. But what about them? What do they believe? It's that sort of just spiraling of absorbing information that makes the game riveting while you're playing. I mean, it's not exciting per se, but if you're someone who likes to learn and explore, it is kind of a dream come true as you're getting through there.
Well, as you said at the top of the show, like you're not spending a lot of time fighting bad guys.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of time walking between places, meeting different characters, not interrogating them, but like questioning them about certain topics, and then reporting back what you've learned, and then just exploring, running errands and exploring certain locations. Like, I mean, the first third of the main quest is purely information gathering.
Yeah.
You might have to run a little errand and do a little mini quest to kind of get the information you need, but it's purely information gathering. And I don't know many RPGs that do that either.
Right. Yeah, it feels like it's a self-guided adventure, but it feels very D&D like. Whereas I wrote in my notes also, you had already said it, but it felt like Oblivion's story was a little bit more generic. Skyrim was still more genericized with each release, but this one was like a deep Dungeons and Dragons campaign where you were just plopped into a world and said, like, you'll find out what it's all about eventually. Just go, talk,
Yeah.
look, walk. And speaking of that, it's so much fun to me when you talk to someone and they say, okay, this is where you have to go, but you go out of town, you make a left, go over the bridge, you'll see a tree, and you want to turn right there. Then go up a hill, but don't go right, go left, and then use this thing, and it'll open up a door. You'll see it looks kind of funny over here. That's how you get there. And
Yeah.
that's what you have to go off of. There are no waypoints. There's no marker on the map. You're just like,
No.
okay, gotta check my directions, what this guy said.
Very occasionally a character will say, here, I'll mark the location on your map. But it's not like you've got on-screen markers showing you which way to go. There's
Not
no
at all.
compass here like you have at the top of Oblivion or Skyrim. Like, you do really have to pay attention. Like, yeah, I was the same. Like, I loved kind of like, right, my directions are, okay, right, go north to the coast, turn right until I come to a cairn. Quickly Google and remind myself what a cairn is. and then follow the, like, you even if you see it on the, even if you check the map and you see where the marker is, you can't just walk there in a straight line because the geography of the world is very kind of mountainous and very kind of
a lot of impassable terrain.
A lot of impassable terrain, a lot of kind of like mountain ranges that you just can't climb up. You have to walk around. Yes, there are some magic spells and certain skills you can use to kind of, levitate or jump high and so forth, but they're fleeting. What I love is there's the phrase in the game in vernacular nowadays, Skyrim your way up mountains. And that's obviously a reference to when you play Skyrim, you just kind of jump up the mountain until you get to the top rather than going up the actual path. But Morrowind was doing this in 2002. Like, there were so many instances where I was basically running at a hill, like a very steep hill, and just about edging and jumping my way up until I was at the top. Like, because if you follow the paths, they take you a long way. Like, so example, Caldera to Aldrune. I remember feeling back in the day that, oh God, that just takes ages walking from there because I was following the path. And this is the other thing. When you're walking along the paths, every now and then you'll come across a signpost.
Yes.
And you look at the signpost and it tells you, right, Aldrune's that way. The road to Aldrune is that way. Doesn't necessarily mean that the city's actually that direction. Just that's the road you need to take.
Yeah.
And the road from Caldera to Aldrune is long. But I only on this playthrough realised that actually, if I go to the hills just northwest of Caldera, they're low enough and not steep enough that I can just go over the hill, and then I'm at Aldrune.
Oh.
And so it's a nice shortcut there.
Yeah. And that's just such a beautiful thing about the way the world is built. Because, like, obviously, if you're new to it, you're gonna try to follow. Maybe you are, but I don't know. It depends on the person. But it kind of suggests to you that you should stay on the path because otherwise you're going to end up getting lost somehow. But if you keep going with the signs, eventually along the way, you'll see another sign and another sign and another sign, and you'll get there. And that makes it, every time you leave a town, which each new town kind of becomes like a new little home base for you because there's a lot to do in the towns, lots of people to talk to, lots of people who can give you quote unquote like side jobs, lots of people to give you quests. There are guilds in each of these towns. So there's so much to do in all these places and just kind of hang out in each town for a while if you want to. But then when you finally like go somewhere else, whether it's part of a quest or if you're just going to explore, you feel like you're setting out on an adventure. Like if I were to go myself, park at the base of a mountain and hike up the mountain and like there was a town up there or something, that's what it feels like. And you have to be prepared. I make sure to have like, okay, do I have a couple potions? Am I going to be able to make it there? Am I going to be able to make it back? I don't know. I don't have any fast travel. I've got to walk this whole way. Although later you get different ways to, especially if you're in the Mages Guild, it helps you. You can get those spells in the certain school of magic that let you return to temples and probably other stuff I don't even know about. I know that you can do there's like the leap spell, and there are people who are jumping across the terrain, cruising as fast as an airplane. If you look at the
Yeah.
corner of their screen and the map is just cruising by. But that's later, and that's after you are very well versed in the world and the available means of travel and the magic available in the world, all that. But when you are new, it is very much like being in the real world in a place you've never been. And that feeling is simultaneously oppressive, exciting, and it leaves you feeling like you don't know what there could be out there, and there's a great big world to explore and lots of things to learn and things to discover. Like, am I going to find a sweet pair of boots? Am I going to encounter an enemy that when I swing and try to hit it, it does nothing? So I need to learn how to do that, how to encounter people like that in game. And then a random character says, oh, by the way, if you go over here, you might want to take an enchanted weapon. And everything you do are these little bits of education about your world that make you an experienced adventurer, not through experience points, but through human player experience in the world, which is just brilliant.
You don't just level up, you learn.
Yeah.
You learn the world, you learn the game. And again, it's all supported by the great writing and the world building.
Yes.
So for the main quest, most of the quests you're given towards the start are from Cassius Cosates, who's like your handler, essentially. Every time he gives you a quest, he'll say, like, before I give you, you finish a quest, and he says, right, before I give you your next quest, if you want to do any side jobs, maybe get some training, maybe do, stock up on stuff, by all means do so. When he gives you a new quest, he almost always gives you, a few hundred gold and says, right, that's for expenses. Get yourself some potions, get yourself some new armor. Like, they're treating you like you're really in the world and suggesting, like, this is what you might need for this one.
Yeah.
And then another brief kind of world building point. Like, a lot of the paths, certainly in the center and the north areas that you follow, they're not man-made paths like the ones you encounter towards the start of the game. They're actually ash rivers. Which is, so Vvardenfell is a volcanic island. In the center of the island is a volcano known as the Red Mountain. In the past, this volcano erupted and carved out like long channels from, with the lava. And those have become used as routes between towns. And it's just, it's the details like that I love.
What an incredible history they wrote. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, because we can talk about the world and the world building for literally ever.
Yes,
I still have more that I was just about to say, but I was like, okay, just don't. Let's talk about something else a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some of the more gamey aspects of it, as in the moment-to-moment mechanics of things like combat, the dialogue, and because we said there's a lot of dialogue, but we didn't say how it's presented, which is interesting, and inventory management. And this was the other thing, leveling. We were talking about how we're getting experience as a player, but building a character is incredibly opaque. Like, they don't really give you advice, and when you start, you have to pick certain things to be your major skills and your minor skills. And I didn't read the manual, unfortunately, because I thought, I played Oblivion, I know exactly what this is going to be like. And it's not like that. You level up by doing the things that you're leveling, and then your skills level. Do you know how leveling up works? I need somebody who knows better than I do. That's what I'm getting at. I'm conveying the confusion that I think the majority of players would have on purpose. So what can you tell us about that?
It's similar to Oblivion and Skyrim in that typical traditional RPGs, you gain XP whenever you kill an enemy or you complete a quest or complete some sort of other action. That doesn't happen here. Killing an enemy doesn't do anything for you. Completing a quest doesn't do anything for you. Instead, it is about when you use your skills. And your skills are everything from like, long blade, short blade, axe, marksman, sneak, security, so lock picking, athletics, which is running, acrobatics, which is jumping, block, light armor, heavy armor, medium armor, all these sort of things. The more you use those things, so block, the more blocking is automatic, but the more you stand there and let someone hit you and you block and your character blocks them, that levels it up. Once you've used each skill a certain number of times, it varies depending on the skill, that skill levels up. The difference here is certainly with Skyrim, and I think it was with Oblivion, any skill you level up contributes to leveling up your character. So once you've leveled up 10 skills, your character levels up. So you go from level 1 to level 2 once you've leveled up 10 skills. The difference here with Morrowind is it has to be one of your major or minor skills. So you have 5 major skills, 5 minor skills. So they're the ones that you are strongest in, you start with an advantage in. But there's something like, I think it's like 27, 29 skills. So it means the majority of them do nothing for you at all. You can level up. I played as, I think the class I chose was an assassin because it was a focus on sneak, security, block, short blade, marksman, stuff like that. Heavy armor, unarmored, speechcraft, mercantile. So speechcraft is how much people like you when you talk to them. It's disposition. It's, the higher their everyone's got a disposition of out of 100. The higher their disposition, the more likely they are to give you the answers to the questions you ask. Mercantile is how good a price merchants give you when you sell stuff or when you buy stuff. Those weren't on my major skills. So every time I leveled those up, it didn't contribute to leveling my character up.
And when you level your character up, you level up your attributes, not your skills.
So this is similar to, I can't remember what the Fallout ones are called. There's an acronym,
Special.
Isn't there, for the Fallout? Special, exactly. It's your special attributes, etc.
And then don't those feed back into the skills and make it so that those skills level more efficiently if they're related to your main attributes?
Depending on what skills you level up, you get a bonus towards your attributes. So bog standard, you just add 1 point to each of your attributes when you level up. But if you say leveled up 5 strength related skills, you get a 5. You get basically a 5 times times 5 bonus when you're again. None of this is explained. This game is so complex. It's even simple things like you find like a bunch of potions and skills and spells and stuff, and there's like fortify strength, drain magicka. It's like, I don't know what that means. To this day, I still don't 100% know what I assume it means make better.
Yeah.
But it's so confusing. But yeah, it's an interesting attempt at a leveling system because it's not. You have to think about how you're playing. You have to think about how you're playing and what skills you're using to level up. The advantage here is if you're not using a certain skill a lot, you have trainers. Now, I completely forget, these are in Oblivion and Skyrim too. Trainers are NPCs who you go up to them and you say, hey, here's a couple of 100 gold, level me up in this skill. And they will, every time you pay them, they will level up that skill. So you can, I'm going to go on a slight tangent here. This is the joy of playing Morrowind as a thief.
Morrowind is a tangent.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible to become very rich very quickly because you are stealing everything you can find. And certainly once you work out like the more valuable items, so going into any dwarven dungeon, there's usually some really valuable stuff down there. Certain caves, certain shrines have like Daedric weapons, which are worth loads. There are 2 merchants. There's a little tip for anyone who plays. There are 2 merchants in the game who don't look like merchants, but they're the only ones who, if you sell them, every Iolder Scry's item has a value. So you'll find a sword, value 120 gold. But if you sell it to a merchant, they'll give you 70 for it, which always winds me up.
If you're lucky. It's based on how much they like you and the 100-point scale.
Yeah. There are 2 merchants where it doesn't matter. In Caldera, there is a scamp. There's a scamp, which is a little weird creature in upstairs of a house called Creeper. He sells everything. He buys everything at full value, and he has 5,000 gold on him. there is a random island in the south of the region where there is a mud crab, which is basically just a big crab. You can talk to it, and that buys stuff of up to 10,000. So if you, and then, you have to like do the whole wait, resting for 24 hours to get there, to top up their finance again.
Right.
But you can basically go to one of these with a pile of weapons and come away. By the time I finished, not finished, but like stopped playing before recording, I had like 200,000 gold. And that was after I'd spent so much. I had so much gold, I could go to these trainers, and particularly each trainer can level up your skill to a certain point. If you find the master trainer for each one, they can level your skill up to 100. Although again, this is based on your attribute. You can't level a skill higher than the attribute.
That's what I was talking about before. The attribute sets the ceiling for each skill. That's what I was.
Yeah. So if your strength is 64, you can't level your short blade higher than 64. But if you've got a ton of gold and you've got the right trainers, you can level up so quickly. I went from like level 20 to level 35 in, I don't know, a few hours, because I knew where to find the right treasure, and just, it was glorious.
That's amazing.
But it's a really complex system. Like, and it's I love this game, but even when I'm playing it now, I'm like, this could be so much simpler.
Mm-hmm. But it's okay. Because it gives, to me, a lot of that, from the leveling to the way that you sell your stuff, a lot of it feels like you're playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and your dungeon master is just watching you, paying attention, and saying, you know what? You're going to level up in this way because of what you've done. Just, it feels bespoke to your experience in the world, which is pretty nice, even if it is very difficult to comprehend.
And depending on the skills you upgrade, you can make life a lot easier for yourself. Like depending on how you play. Mm-hmm. So, as an example, acrobatics. Acrobatics is just jumping. I was running and jumping everywhere, like an original WoW player. Mm-hmm. You remember when everyone used to just run and jump at the same time?
Yeah, I do that anyway because it's a little bit faster.
Yeah, exactly. The movement is so slow in this. Mm-hmm. It's the fastest way to do it. I got my acrobatics up to something stupid like 94, and it got to the stage where I was able to like leap between islands and like leap like gaps that previously I would have had to, I'd have struggled with. I was leaping and running so fast because I'd upgraded those. Equally, there was I
love that.
Again, my thiefiness. I'd upgraded my security, which is lockpicking, so much that you sometimes come across like quest-centric chests where you need the key for them because the lock level is like 70 or 100. I got to the point where I could unlock any 100 lock, any level 100 lock I could unlock quickly. And so, there's no lockpicking minigame here. You literally just, your hand sticks out with a lockpick and it just twiddles a bit. But it meant that I could speed through those bits because I'd played that way. Other people will find different advantages in different ways they play. If you go really heavily on the magic, for example, you'll find it easy to like fly and levitate and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Man, so as we were talking, we've covered so many little things that I was like, oh, we should say something about that. Oh, we should say something about that. So you said, oh, I can just carry a bunch of stuff to these merchants and make a lot of money. But can you? Let's talk about this encumbrance and the item interface, the inventory management. It's terrible.
Awful. It's really bad.
It's so bad.
It's really bad. On your inventory screen, like above your character, there's like this typical weight thing. You can carry up to, I think at the start it's like 100, 200 kilograms of something. I'd got mine up to like nearly 500 by leveling up the right attitude. So once that happens, that's a bit easier. I'll be honest, this is my cheat. Again, another tip. You can buy a spell, even if you're not a mage character, you can buy a spell called Mark, and you can buy a spell called Recall. And so Mark is a spell where you basically mark a spot in the world. I don't think you're allowed to do it in towns. You have to do it just outside of a town. And it puts a little white X on your world map. And then whenever you cast Recall, you teleport back to that spot wherever you are. Yes. It's essentially cheap fast travel. manual one-way fast travel because you can't then go back to where you were. You can only go to your mark. But I had that next to the house where Creeper is with the 5,000 gold, that merchant. And so every time I was over encumbered and I'd just got too much stuff, I just warped back to Caldera. And then you have to like
drop all your stuff
dump
on the
a
ground.
bunch of stuff on the ground. Yeah, exactly. Which the glory is though, like this was the first game that I encountered that has a really good sense of permanence.
Forever.
Like,
the stuff's there forever if you put it down.
It's forever. Like to the point where like I'd given up. I couldn't be bothered to carry this like 90 kilogram axe to, all the way to that mud crab. So I just left it outside Caldera. I think about like 2-3 hours later, I walked back to Caldera with more loot and the axe was still on the floor. Like it remembers stuff, but yeah, it's an absolute hassle. Like, and then like what you want to sell, every time you want to sell something, you have to physically click it from your inventory. And then if it's a stack of like a multiple things, so say you've got, I don't know, like 5 daggers, you have to, it's like, how many do you want to sell? And you have to use the slider to select how many.
Although you can hold shift.
The other way, like when,
luckily.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can hold shift to take the whole stack or hold control to take one without going to the prompt. Because, I mean, I did that like a couple times. And I was like, there's got to be a way. I just started holding buttons and clicking. And I came across, I was like, let me try control click. Let me try shift click. Again, because it was just too much.
I didn't know this stuff. It doesn't explain this stuff. I didn't know that. So I've been managing my inventory like a fool.
With a lot of extra clicks.
But yeah, even because that was what was annoying me. Like, what's it like? When you find a chest or something and it's got like a ton of random clothes and then gold, you have to pick up the gold. Or I was having to pick up the gold, slide the slide to say, yes, I want to take all the gold, and then move it into my inventory.
Yeah, or like, you could take all and then go back to your inventory and drop all the stuff you didn't want.
And then put the clothes back. Yeah. It's an absolute fact.
And when you take only a couple things, you have to then manually close the container that you're looking in. There's no button, I don't think, that can close it quickly. I don't know how many times I've pressed escape trying to get out of a container just to go to the menu and be like, oh God, I have to click on this. Ugh.
I'll say as well, because we're talking about like keyboard shortcuts like shift and control and so forth. When we first started, when we first agreed we were going to do this, I first fired it up on Xbox and I thought I'm going to play through this in the comfort of my sofa. The Xbox version, the controls are even worse because you're cramming all these things that you use a full keyboard for into that little gamepad. The Xbox is so cumbersome to play with. It was just painful. Like this game is meant to be played on keyboard and mouse.
But also at the same time, I don't love playing games on keyboard and mouse. I find it like uncomfortable, but that's the only way you can do it unless you set up a very customized Steam controller setup. So I miss playing on controller, but then as you're playing, you're like, man, this would be a lot for a controller anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing I wanted to talk about was we were mentioning dropping stuff on the ground, and we also talked about like the story, the depth of the story, and sort of topics that wouldn't be broached by modern games. We've got illicit substances, drugs, and stuff in this game that are part of the story. They're used in like a black market, and if you go into any self-respecting trader, they will know that you have it on you right off the bat, even if you don't try to sell it to them, and say, get that stuff out of here. I won't trade with you at all unless you drop this stuff. And you have to go to characters of like specific races to sell the drugs. Very weird.
It's skooma, which is this weird drink, and then moon sugar, which is the key ingredient. It's not just that. There's something similar, like you can contract diseases. Like if you're attacked by a diseased monster, you catch a disease which weakens some of your attributes. So you can be unencumbered, and as soon as you're bitten by someone that's got like the blight or something, your strength drains and you suddenly can't move because there's potions and stuff to cure this. But if you don't cure it and you're not unencumbered and you go into town, every time you talk to someone, their usual greeting is replaced with "You're diseased, get out." Like, don't talk to me, don't touch me. And sometimes it can mean they won't even like talk. I think trainers and traders and people that offer services, I think they do still do those things. But if you want to ask them a question about a topic or something, they won't answer you because you're diseased. We should at this point say, because you mentioned it earlier and we haven't done it, how the dialogue works. When you speak to someone, it brings up a box.
It's like half the screen.
And on the, Yes, half the screen, yeah. The right hand of the box is like a column of topics, and then you click on the topic you want to ask them about, and then it gives their answer in the main kind of chat box on the left. And then whatever they say, certain words might be highlighted and introduce new topics that you can ask them about. And it's really interesting. It works in that you can ask them about a really wide range of stuff.
Yeah.
But easily, by the end, it becomes this just really, really long kind of wall of text, broken up by little headers in the main chat box. And you have to scroll back and say, hang on, what did they say about that? What did we do? It's an interesting way of doing it.
Ultimately, I like it. After a while, I got used to it. But when I first encountered it, I said, I can't be doing all this. Is just too much. What are you talking about? And then numerous characters in the same area, like in the same town, they'll say literally the same thing when you ask about a similar topic or the same topic, which seems to be silly. But, I've come to realize that, well, you're playing a game where you're immersed in the world. It's not like an old JRPG where you have to talk to every single person in the town. You have to go into their house. You have to say something to them. You have to come out. You have to go to every person. Here, it gives you the opportunity to just more organically live in the world and talk to people as you go and be able to ask a number of different people the same things about the same topics and get the same answers without having to scour the entire town and talk to everybody. So I do kind of like it ultimately, but man, it is like rough to look at it first for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
It ties into what we were saying earlier about directions and stuff. Like if you go to a town, you're told to go and meet someone at a tavern and you don't know where they are, you talk to people and the person's name might be one of the topics. So you click it, it's like, oh yeah, he's on the second floor.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, brilliant. I've got some, and it immerses you in that idea of, I've come to this place and I'm looking for a local. And I'm not just following a marker. I'm not just following a glowing trail like so many games are nowadays. I'm actually having to engage with this world and investigate. And it's, I do like that.
Yeah. When you get to a new town also, one of the things that you can often ask is like, a specific place, I think is what it's called on the sidebar.
Yeah.
So you click specific place and they'll say, oh, our smith is up in the north by the gate. There are a couple traders. They set up shop on the west side of town. You'll find this person over here. Then you take that and you're like, okay, well, I want to go up there. And you can find your way. Like you said, if you're looking for someone, they're supposed to be in the bar in this town. Well, you talk to someone, ask for a specific place, and they'll say, oh, the tavern is down in the southeast. And say, great. And I walk over there. So it really feels like I'm me. And I'm arriving in a town, and I'm like, well, what would I do to figure out where this person is? Hey, you know where the tavern is? Just in real life. That's how else would you figure out? I mean, you would use Google Maps, but if you were living, pre 2000s, you would be just trying to find out the answers to the questions you have, and it feels really cool to me to go through that process, even if it is slow. And even if I think a lot of people might hate that. I could see this going either way for people in general. Like, oh God, that game, it's a slog. And other people being like, oh my God, this game, it's so immersive.
Yeah. It feels very immersive. Like it is very much an RPG, but it is the most immersive RPG I can think of.
Yeah.
A brief note on the combat.
Yes,
because
that's important.
Elder Scrolls combat is always criticised for being so janky. Anyone who complains about how janky it is in Skyrim, good Lord, don't even try this one. So again, your combat ability is dictated by your skills and your level, which means at the start of the game, when you are so very, and then because it's so difficult to level up your skills, I spent bloody ages, hours as still level 1. You're woefully underpowered, and it means that your sword can be literally passing through the enemy immediately in front of you. You're not even connecting. Your sword is just passing through them.
Yes.
And it's frustrating. Slight tangent, obviously. No, related. Stealth Archer. Obviously, Stealth Archer is the way to play Skyrim and many other RPGs. I think you can play as Stealth Archer in Oblivion. It's really difficult to play as a Stealth Archer in Morrowind because, again, the marksman skill dictates whether or not you hit stuff. I think by the end of my playthrough, or by the stage where I am now, my marksman was like level 60 or 70 or something, and it was finally at the point where I could aim at something in the distance, and 9 times out of 10 I would hit it and it would go down with one shot.
But until then, you wasted 47,000 arrows not getting a hit.
It was absurd. And if they see me, if I miss with that first arrow and they run towards me, I then can't hit them. I can see the arrow. It is going directly into their face, particularly the big monsters and stuff. But it just passes through and doesn't hit. And that is frustrating. The combat is frustrating. I'm so glad the game is not combat centric. And I'll be honest, I whacked my difficulty down to pretty much nothing because I'm not here to prove. This is not a Souls-like where you're here to learn the combat system. You're here for the adventure. You're here to explore. Don't get caught up in the combat. Just kill everything and on easy once your skills are leveled up, because it's
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I didn't really have a problem with the way the combat worked. I came in with the understanding, I knew that it was numbers based, that it was based on your stats, even though it looks like it's real time with hitboxes. It's not. But I never really felt a problem with it. I would just click and say, oh, look, it hit him. Yay. Oh, miss. Okay, hit. But it was fine to me. And just recently, I played Baldur's Gate, the first one on PC. It's the same conceit, it's the same method of doing combat, except in that game, it was infuriating. And in this game, it was just fine for me. I think maybe because that one, you kind of click and then it kind of automates, where at least here I'm clicking and each attack, each time I click the mouse button or whatever the attack button is mapped to, it's like, okay, here's a chance to hit. It did not hit. Click it again. Here's another chance to hit. It did not hit. Click it again. Oh, it did hit. As opposed to some of those older isometric games where you just kind of click on your target and you let them go and it's kind of fast paced, but you don't really know what's happening and they're hitting you and you're hitting them and it's harder to keep track of. I did feel like this was at least easier for me to be present in the combat despite the indirect nature of the damage between us. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think we covered some combat, the visuals, the music. Jeremy Soule. Mentioned him so many times. I love the music in this game and all of them.
It's brilliant. Obviously, limitations of making games at the time, there's less of it than there is in Oblivion and Skyrim. I think I actually found in the files when I had it back in the day, I found the folders where all the music files were, and I put I fired up Winamp back in the day, and I put together a little playlist of just the exploration music, and I think it was like half an hour. It was not long. No, the music's great. The music's great. The context in which it is used sometimes doesn't quite fit what's going on. Two examples I'll give of this.
I love these examples.
One is the main title theme is just in random rotation when you're at peace. There are 2 settings: when you're at peace and when you're in combat. Mm-hmm. The main theme will come in randomly while you're at peace, and it starts really softly and then builds up.
Oh, so you think something's supposed to be happening?
Yeah, and it feels like it's going to be something significant, but you're just walking down a road. And the same road you've walked down a lot of times, usually between Caldera and Balmora, because I've walked back to sell some loot, and then I'm going to Balmora to Silt Strider and fast travel my way back out.
But that's also a great tune. And it gives you that vibe. It's almost like the Great Sea in Wind Waker, which we just played. It's got that, I'm adventuring kind of feeling.
It is. I think it just did. There's certain moments where it like comes in. It's like this is $2,000 for what I'm actually doing. The other one is the combat music. The combat music is suitably dramatic, but it uses the same combat music for every enemy. So when like a Daedric, monster or a golden saint or a giant dinosaur or a cliff racer or something's coming at you, something that genuinely poses harm to you, poses a threat to you, that makes sense. When it's a single slaughterfish, or I think it's the Quama larvae, which is like one of those little worms, or it looks like a little baby sandworm from Dune, or a rat or something. Or, and this is my favourite, when you can't actually see the enemy that is trying to attack you, something has seen you, is running at you, but has got stuck behind a rock or a tree or something, and you've got this dramatic music telling you that, oh God, you're in danger, and you look around, it's like, there's like either something really weedy, or there's nothing there. And this slight but related tangent if you get hit, your screen jerks to kind of show that you've been hit, and the sound it makes when your armor gets hit is quite loud and distressing. But when it's like just a little slaughterfish and it's barely dented your health bar, it's like, I really didn't need the effects to be that dramatic because I thought I was in serious trouble here. And it's just a little jarring.
Yeah, they have no like gradation in your damage receipts. Alternatively, I want to give you an example of the music being amazing and working, because I was in Caldera the first time, in Caldera Mine, and as I was walking through, the tune, I don't know which one it was, but it went so perfectly with me walking through, seeing the slaves tied up, getting like internally angry, reading some of the notes, like the rules that the slaves had to follow, and I'm reading it, and the music is kind of ramping up. It's like a somber tune, but it's also growing, and it's kind of as my anger about the situation is growing, and it's playing, and I'm in my mind deciding that when I see someone in charge of this place, I'm going to attack them, and I'm going to let these slaves go. I was like, where's the key for this? I'm going to find this key. I'm going to let them go. And the music's building and building. And then I read something about like, oh, you've been assigned to a harsher part of the mine. Let this be a lesson that you don't take your, like, wear more modest clothing to like a female cat person. And I'm just getting like, just seething, and the music is growing with me. And then I encounter a guard and I'm like, forget this. And I just start attacking, and it just really worked in that moment. It felt like super emotional. So sometimes yes, sometimes no.
I do love the music because I believe they certainly reuse it in Skyrim, but I think they reuse it in Oblivion as well. Like every now and then you'll be like wandering around and exploring, and you will hear one of the old exploration tracks from Morrowind come on, and it just takes me back. Like, oh yeah, no, this is the stuff.
Yeah, because I was playing and I'm like, this was definitely in Oblivion. this track, because it's like so familiar to me, and I haven't been playing this as much, and I've played that hundreds of hours. But they're good tracks, even if they're not thematically like placed well. But man, what a game!
I guess one last tiny note,
yes.
And again, it's the whole world building and detail and so forth, is the fact that every character's got a name.
Yes,
every single one of them. There's no just bandit's chief. Every single character's got a name.
Yeah,
I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. I love it. I love the painstaking attention to detail in this game. My sort of painstaking attention to detail element that I noticed and was very happy about is you'll get somewhere and there's like a table where someone does something, whatever that task is at that table, and it's evident by the context, but at that table will be all the individual tools and implements that person would need to carry out that task that are physically part of the game, and you can pick them up. Like if this person would have needed a scale and a lantern and a pencil, they're all there on the desk. And it's like that all over the map, which when I think about it, it's mind-blowing. But same idea. Okay. At the end of every episode, we like to decide whether the game we've just played was worth revisiting so many years later or would be recommendable to someone to revisit in 2025 and beyond. If it is, it's a smash. If it's not, well, then it's more of a brick. So, James, I'm certain I know your answer, but is this a smash or a brick?
It's absolutely a smash. It's a smash that is in dire need of a remaster.
Yes.
Because I want more people to play this. And like, there is another fan mod project which I am desperately waiting for it to come out, is Skywind. Someone is remaking Morrowind in the Skyrim engine. And if you gave me Morrowind with Skyrim graphics and Skyrim's like leveling system and so forth, that is my perfect game.
Oh yeah. I mean, that would be incredible, because Skyrim built up the gameplay, but as they went on, they left out the depth of the story and world building that we're talking about. As for me, also absolutely a smash. As I said, when I played Oblivion, it was mind-blowing. It was my favorite game of that time. It was what I thought games could. It was like the realization of the best games could be. And this was 4 years earlier. And that is so impressive. I can almost not believe it. This game is absolutely a smash to me for all the reasons we talked about. And even the things that are annoying about it, like the inventory and the encumbrance and some of the opaqueness, doesn't really matter, because you learn how it works and then you become well-versed in the system, and you can ignore the system and be more in the world. And that's where this game takes place, is definitely in this world. And I love it. Smash. Smash all around. So with that, a smash from both of us, a smash from both of us makes Morrowind a smash that is and was worth revisiting in 2025 and beyond. Thank you everyone for listening and playing along with us. If you did, please, if you enjoy the show, I hope you do, tell your friends about it. Tell one person, go listen to Smashing Bricks. And if you want to do more than that, or less than that, whatever it is, go to your favorite podcasting platform and leave us a nice, glorious review for totally free. You can also go to Patreon and support the show monetarily with some fun perks, like being able to submit a game that we may play on a future episode, or even being on the show at the higher levels. Go over there, patreon.smashingbricks.com or patreon.com/smashingbricks, and become a patron for as little as $1 a month. One thing that patrons do get is bonus round episodes as they are released. In this case, related to Morrowind, the 2002 game, you'll be getting the best games of 2002 on the 28th of the month. What I just started doing this month was releasing the old bonus round episodes for everybody. We're releasing all those episodes. They're on about a 14-month delay, but that's a whole new thing that you get to listen to from Smashing Bricks. So every other episode for you on the regular feed, you're going to have an episode about a game, and then on the first of the next month, you'll get some old bonus round episode related to a game that we've played a long time ago. But again, if you want it immediately when it's perfectly relevant and fresh, you support at Patreon at the $5 level. As always, I would like to thank Tanuki level supporter Ms. Muso. Thanks, Ms. Muso. And everyone, go check out the Discord to chat about everything you hear, to add commentary that we may read in future episodes, and to add games that should be on the Smashing Bricks playlist. Links to everything can be found at links.smashingbricks.com. As for next episode, I'll be joined once again by Kyle Stalick, this time for a Power Up episode, where we will be playing The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, for GameCube, Xbox, PC, PS2, and that whole generation. So get your hands on a copy, play along, send in your thoughts, and join us next time on Smashing Bricks. That wraps it up for today. I'm still Eddie Inzauto. That is James Batchelor. Thanks, James.
Thank you so much.
And until next time, May the nostalgia be with you.